that sounds great. And do you have time for questions, like a Q&A session when you're done with presenting?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, thank you. I
So,
appreciate that. Okay.
perfect. All right, so yeah, okay, so yeah, again, my name is Noah Urban. I'm one of the co-executive directors of Data Driven Detroit. For those who might not have heard of us in the past, we are basically what we call a community data hub for Metro Detroit. We are an organization that seeks to kind of go out into the mess of data that exists out there in the world. Apologies for my lighting. And we also, so basically, there's a ton of data that's generated by various exhaust sources, whether that's federal surveys, local administrative processes, state processes, private corporations. All of that data can be really useful for nonprofits to be able to work with, help inform their decisions, where they can target programming, how they can do their work more efficiently, effectively, serve more people. And a lot of nonprofits aren't staffed and funded in the way that allows them to have a data analyst on staff to actually make meaning from that information. So that's kind of the role that we play, as an organization, is we go out into that mess of information, help understand what sorts of questions the nonprofits that we work with are trying to answer, and then we use the data to help them answer it and inform their programming and their decisions. So we've been around for about 16 years now. I joined the D3 team back in 2013, so I'm coming closer to my 12th anniversary with the team. And we started off actually originally as a nonprofit organization, or a program within a nonprofit organization. And then in 2015, we actually transitioned out into what we call a low profit limited liability company, or L3C model. So, and in 2022, we transitioned from sole ownership into a worker-owned cooperative structure. So in addition to talking a lot about GIS and how that's kind of helped impact my career, also happy to talk about nonprofit life, L3C life, worker ownership life, if any of those things are of interest to anyone. There's a lot of fun stories we've gathered along the way. But yeah, so that's about the organization at a very high level. And really, myself, I came to D3 fresh out of my master's in urban planning at Wayne State. I graduated in 2012, did a bit of work for the department as a research associate after that, and then was hired onto D3 in 2013 as basically a junior analyst. So I was applying a lot of GIS principles very regularly in my day-to-day back in 2013, and it was kind of the bread and butter of what I did for my job for at least the first several years at D3, where I was just doing a lot of data, mapping, analysis, kind of applying those principles throughout the course of, everything that I did. And I learned a lot about when GIS is great. I did a lot of work kind of studying Access and SQL databases a little bit as well. And then around, I would say, the 2015 or so, I started to veer more into project management at D3. So I was doing a lot of work in GIS as well. Still, kind of the role was like senior analyst / project lead, but I was doing more project management, more kind of like working with people to identify and scope out projects. But what I can say at that time is the work that I did as an analyst and like working with GIS and doing all that work was really helpful for me in helping people understand what was possible and what wasn't possible. So it was really, I became quite good at that, I think. And a few years later, I kind of transitioned into a role that was more like director of projects. So not just managing the projects, but kind of helping design them, helping people scope them out, helping them, again, understand like, this is something that you can attain. Now, here's how we're going to take each of these pieces. Here's where the GIS role plays in. Here's where like the data analysis role plays in. Here's where the writing and the reporting play in. And so that was kind of the next step in the career evolution. And then in 2020, I became co-executive director in October to kind of help take on the executive leadership role within the organization. So that's the broad arc. I've been with D3 basically my entire professional career, and I feel very lucky to have been able to do that. But yeah, and a lot of it really wouldn't have been possible without learning GIS to start and get my foot in the door. So Yes, that's me. Oh, Catherine, I think you're on mute.
I'm sorry. I said you've been on an incredible journey at Data Driven Detroit, like to exit the MUP program and then to stick with it this long. That's amazing. Thank you for sharing the background to where you are now.
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't know if there's questions that would be helpful to talk through, or I can happy to delve deeper into any elements of my experience that might be of interest. But yeah, happy to just see where the conversation goes from here. Yes.
Okay, so I have a question. Hi, Noah. I'm teaching the GIS class for the intro GIS class for the undergrad students now. I know your data platform long time ago, but right now because so many municipalities they already open their own data portal. Used to I just look some information from your website first, but now because they are like more representing more official data for a lot of things, so I kind of like not directly thinking about which data I should right away think about go to D3 instead of the other municipality open data port. So can you give us some idea like what is better if we want to look some information and go to your website to look for it?
Yes.
Thank
Absolutely. You. And it's a really good question because it's been an interesting, I think, evolution over the past 10 years or so, since when the open data portals, or from when the open data portals first came out to like where they are right now. So back in 2014, we were one of the first to launch like the Esri beta portal like in the region, and we had like an open data portal. And then the city launched theirs in 2015, and others have kind of come online since then. And I think our thinking has really started to change around like what is around like how we use the open data portal. So originally we were just trying to put as much information on there as we could, like for people to be able to use or access or download. And since then, I think we've become a lot more intentional in trying to curate like what we provide out to our open data portal versus like what the city provides. And we're trying very much not to duplicate. So if like the city of Detroit has data sets on their open data portal, we don't need to provide those raw data sets on ours. Like that's not really needed. But what we can provide is more what I would say like value added files. And sometimes those go on the open data portal, but sometimes they're also through our open, like our data tools or other features. So if, for example, like the city provides building permit data, they'll just provide the list of the raw permits that are pulled, but they're not going to necessarily do any analysis or things like that. What we provide through our housing information portal data tool is sort of like this aggregated picture of the building permit data where we've taken the data and summarized it to census tracts or other geographies. So it's more of like, again, kind of keeping in mind the lens of like a lot of the people we work with tend to be like nonprofit organizations, people who might just need like, I need data about the area that I'm serving, like a really quick data profile or something. So the data tools are kind of designed to pull that information together for them. Does that make sense? So we tend to do more with curated data now and less with the raw data in terms of sharing, but still a bit of the raw data at times.
So my understanding is, so their map, you might use their map as a base, and then you're gonna make some editing so the attribute table will be having more contents and then combining more databases. Maybe some of them maybe don't have map, but if you go to look for the same map, you check the attribute table, you might have other information they are looking for.
Yep, exactly. Or we might like pre-aggregate from points up to census tracts or something like that. Like we might do some of that analysis too. But yeah, it's usually there's something extra that we've done with it.
Okay, and then those are all like open data, like we can download it.
Some of them, yes. Yep.
Oh, some of them.
And that's the other thing. Like as we've kind of evolved as an organization. Like the open data portal that we have, which is, here, I can also do screen sharing if that's helpful. Because there's a lot of different things available. Oh, is it possible for me to share, Catherine? Oh,
We cannot hear
sorry.
you.
Yeah, you're muted again.
Yeah, Catherine, we cannot hear you.
I'm sorry. I think you can. It might ask me to give you permission. Did you try to share and are you being denied or?
Yeah, it's just giving me a grayed out icon.
Let me see if there's, I didn't set that. I don't think I think Alex set this. Let me look in the settings and see if I can do something for you. So just give me a moment. Let me play around with this and I'll shoot you my question. I have a question for you. I'm going to shoot you my question and I'm going to look for sharing capabilities on your end. My question is, I noticed like I used to access a lot of your shape files and data files early on in my educational journey. But I noticed that like post 2018, there's been like a shift away from the Detroit centered focus that you had. And I noticed that when I go into the portal, you have a heavy presence of like Oakland County information. And there's a deficiency now. It seems like it has shifted and current like relevant Detroit data is older. And then I can't even find Wayne County, like things for Wayne County. And I just wondered, like, do you focus on Wayne County research and like gathering data and things like that concerning Wayne County? Or are you just like, as data-driven Detroit, more focused on Oakland County now?
Oh, no, absolutely not. So I think what happened there is because the way the Esri portal is set up, it's very easy for you to just like connect your open data portal to someone else's open data portal and just stream in everything that they're sharing. So I think all that happened is we clicked like oh, sure, reflect Oakland County's data portal onto ours, and that was basically it. I don't think we've done the same with the city of Detroit. My guess would be probably because their Esri portal is more recent. They used to be on like Socrata, and that option wasn't available back when they did the Socrata portal. That might be an easy enough thing for us to switch now. An easy enough switch for us to check now that they're on the ArcGIS Esri-based portal. But I would say the other thing that's kind of been a big shift is, again, sort of like how we present out the data that we're using or that we're providing to you. Where before 2017 or 2018, 2017, we mentioned like a lot of the data was kind of on our open data portal and provided like through that range. And now we've centralized more on these like interactive data tools that we have instead, which kind of provide them a bit more curated looks into the information, but also opportunities to download as well. So that's kind of been, there has been, I think, more of like a conscious push, and that we actually have a lot more data about Detroit than we used to, but it's just being presented out through different tools rather than just the open data portal. Yeah.
Thank you. That makes me feel better. I
Yes,
just wanted to know. Yeah, thank you so much.
You're definitely committed.
I'm still digging to find like some type of security measure so I can give you sharing. So just bear with me for a minute.
No worries. And actually, I mean, while we're figuring that out, I'm happy to just share. So if you go to our website, there's also this page called the Toolbox. Let me drop this in the chat for folks. Oh, chat is turned off for the meeting. Okay, never mind. There is a page called the Toolbox.
So I'm on the Toolbox. I guess my question is how you have kids in education, how's in neighborhoods, and are these specific programs that you have, or how do you kind of focus on specific projects? Is that funding based?
For the most part, it tends to be funding based. The way that we actually keep the lights on is by taking on paid projects. So most of that is like, sometimes either a nonprofit or a foundation will have identified kind of a need. They work with us to scope out the project. We execute it. there are a lot of times we run this community data request system called AskD3, which has a lot of like basically anybody can send us an answer or a question, and if it's 2 hours or less, we do it for free. And so we use that program to kind of help keep a track on the pulse of like what types of questions come in regularly. And if we notice a larger pattern, then we'll try and like advocate for a foundation or somebody else to fund like a more systemic solution. And what's in the toolbox tend to be data tools that we've created for probably like a larger number of users, like a broader audience. So the two biggest ones there are State of the Detroit Child and the Housing Information Portal. But there are others that we link to that either we've created as part of like more discrete projects or just, you know, even ones that we don't maintain, but we've found to be very helpful to us for people to be able to access.
Thanks.
So I have another question. So while I was doing the land use map analysis with transportation, and I noticed that the Dearborn is the one city that did not provide their parcel information at all. And then it seems like don't have the GIS department. If I just search on their city website, but when I search, actually the Google or something, it referred to D3, and I saw your website. Seems like you have something about Dearborn, but also do not have like all the data I'm looking for. I'm just curious if you are like a future will become their like contractors to help them do mapping for Dearborn.
Yeah, so we've had conversations with the city of Dearborn. For Wayne County, it gets really interesting when you get outside of Detroit. Like Detroit's kind of its own. Detroit's fortunate enough to have a fairly robust GIS department and a really robust GIS presence. The rest of Wayne County is not so much. And so I think if you need to, and this is why we haven't done a lot of like outer Wayne County like parcel level mapping. Like if I do think that the Wayne County Assessor's Office has shape files for like the parcels in Dearborn. I believe they're 2015 vintage, and I don't think they've updated them. That's the only thing I've been able to find for those.
Yeah, I find that one. And then all the other cities are fine, but Dearborn is just blank. That area does not provide any information, even it's from Wayne County.
They don't even have them for Wayne County? Oh, I didn't even know that. Oh my goodness. Let me see. There was. Maybe I can refer you. Was somebody we were talking with from Dearborn a couple weeks ago, or a couple years ago, not a couple weeks ago. Sorry, yeah, this was longer. Who was their GIS person? Here.
I think it's our alumni as well as from my classmate.
Yeah.
Well, his name is called Mo, M-O-E, Mo.
Oh yeah, yep. Yeah.
But I don't know his title because even though he knows GIS, yeah, he's earliest, one of the earliest peer that doing GIS is pretty good at it. But I was just curious, how comes he knows GIS but there's no GIS department in the city?
Yeah, you know what, that to link up to what Professor Joe is talking about, that's one of the reasons why I asked you about Wayne County, because it just seems to be so deficient in the GIS world. It doesn't, you know, and they even had a website, you know, a misleading, like even Esri had posted that you can go to Wayne County, you know, to this site to get, you know, your GIS, you know, needs met. And I go over there and it's ghost town. I mean, there's nothing there.
Yeah.
And that is that created a hardship for me on a project I was working on, because I really needed parcel, you know, information, shape files and things of that nature for Wayne County. And so I'm just, you know, trying to understand, like, why do we not have that for Wayne County? It's a, you know, Wayne County is very important. It's one of our, I think it's our most diverse county in the state of Michigan. Mm-hmm. And so to not have access to that information as a planner is not good.
Yeah, that's a big
Or as a
challenge.
state, or as a, at the local level, the state level. I mean, I just don't understand why we're so behind in the GIS world in Michigan and in so many areas.
Yeah. No, it's been a big challenge, I think, for us too in trying to navigate Wayne County because, I mean, ultimately, like, Detroit doesn't exist in a vacuum, right? Like, what happens right outside of Wayne County is very important, but
Yeah.
it's been so challenging to try to stitch together a Wayne County parcel layer, a comprehensive one, that we really kind of just stopped trying in some ways. Trying to think, like the last time we had contact with their GIS team was maybe in like 2016 or 17. Yeah, so it's a challenge.
Yeah.
And I think, I mean, partially it's funding, partially it could be, the municipalities are very balkanized in Wayne County. Like there's just a lot of like outside of Detroit, there's just a lot of municipalities, and maybe the fact that Detroit has such a robust GIS environment makes it hard, sucks up more of the county level resources. I don't know, but yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Noah. That helps. But it still needs to be resolved.
Yes.
Because it's not okay. Yeah. Yeah.
And I have another question. So, no, I just mentioned that you actually can use an asterisk to quick link from other platform just and share it on your website. So I kind of like now I'm not sure if I look for the city boundary map, for example. I think it might not be the same because if I look up the state of Michigan for city boundary, it will have entire Michigan's cities. If I look for other source, their boundaries, like region, they focus are smaller and smaller. So my peers, like my imagination is their data, if whatever date they stated, they just actually download it from the other platform and then they re-edit it. For example, like a land use map, and if it's offered by SIMCOG, they actually go to all the different cities to get those separate maps, and then they joined all of them. So to me, I don't feel like it's directly linked from those platforms. So do you actually know that if I look for some information, are they actually are from the other platform? See, for example, if I'm not doing this way, if I'm just checking from city of Detroit, and I get some of the map, and they are they possibly actually directly get from some level like SIMCOG, and then just they cut Detroit area and then share it?
But you're thinking like on the city's open data portal, like if there's like a Detroit-based thing that might be like that if they're like linking to something from SEMCOG or something.
Yeah, like maybe road or maybe, for example, road, maybe Detroit don't have the road maps that done by their transportation department actually get from maybe MDOT. Right, so do they actually just directly link it? Like if they updated the other end, say they updated by this year, early this year, 2025, and will the map just synchronized, updated that portion, or they won't? It's not that direct link. They just download it and. So.
Yeah, it depends kind of on how they're handling it, I think. So, like if they're linking just the data sets from the portals, if like the state updates the map, it should update automatically if they're just like linking across the two portals. But if they are doing that download process, then they would have to manually re-upload it. So it kind of, I'm not quite sure which process they would be using, but that would.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry about that.
Yeah, that would be that. I mean, like from our side, we have kind of like we almost always try to work with the statewide data because it tends to just be like most accurate. And again, Detroit's not really existing in a vacuum, but and then we just usually use definition queries and things like that to like narrow down the statewide data sets to what we're working with for Detroit or like the counties if it's a regional map.
Okay, but like the picture for this function that directly link, will you able to directly link a portion of the map contents, or when you directly link is whatever the whole map they provided from that other platform is it's the same thing. You
Yep.
like to do this. Okay. Yeah, that's what.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yes.
So Noah, I'm just curious, like, do you guys have any exciting projects on deck for 2025 that you want to talk about or inform us about? Like what your vision is for this year, what direction you guys are going in?
Absolutely, yes. There's one that we're really, really excited about. It's called the Neighborhood Vitality Index.
Okay.
That's also, it should be on our website, but if not, I'll just also, the link is nvidetroit.org.
Yeah, I saw that.
Perfect. Yeah. So this is this is one of our newer project. Well, newer. It's been going on for like 8 years, but very long gestating. But we're finally ready to get to like a major public release with it. And the idea behind NVI is that it's kind of this new or a newer like measurement benchmarking system for the city of Detroit and the community development and like neighborhood sector, but one that was actually designed by like Detroit residents and the community development sector. So rather than like D3 coming in and being like, these are the measures that make the most sense for your neighborhood, there was a lot of conversation with people from across the city about like, here's what actually makes sense, or here's what we think matters to us. Now, how can we try and measure that? And what's cool about NVI is that half of the indicators, actually probably more than half, come from a resident survey. So it's really putting a lot of like resident perception data next to like the secondary administrative data that D3 would normally work with. And so there's going to be a lot of really cool data points coming out that are like things that you wouldn't be able to get from any other source, and that should be mappable, not quite at like a small neighborhood level, but they will be like mappable at a level below city council district. Like we call them neighborhood zones. There's usually like 3 or 4 per council district. So there will be a lot of really interesting things coming out of that. Things like, I mean, what do people feel about access to transportation versus what does the census data say? What do people feel about safety in their neighborhoods versus the public safety data? So like all of those kinds of different components. And I think really cool opportunities for GIS analysis. So that one should be coming out in June, and we're really excited about it.
Okay, that sounds really amazing. I'm glad I saw that last night when I was, going through your website, and I was like, now that looks really cool. And I like how you said that it answers things that the census data can't, because often quantitative data is very, very important, but qualitative data often gives us those answers that we make a lot of assumptions when we quantify things. But qualitative data helps fills in those gaps and gives more context to what the quantitative numbers are telling us. So good job on that. I'm really excited to see that project come out. That will be extremely useful planning. Good work
and
on
if you
that.
want to get like a sneak peek at it, we have results like at a council district level from a 2023 survey that we did up there. So those are available, and you can see what kinds of data points we'll be publishing. Because most of the indicators are intended to be measured over time. The goal here is to get those down to a smaller geography level.
Good work on that.
And actually, I took 2 years of your survey.
Oh, great! Thank you. We love it.
To provide, one time there was a cash in the letter directly.
Yeah. $25 gift cards.
$1 was like the first time there was like $1 cash inside of it, or $2 in cash just inside of it. Not brand new, but it's inside of it. And then later it's become a $25 gift card, and I got it.
Yes.
I guess I'm guessing.
Yeah, we were experimenting. There was like several years of doing the pilot process to see like what strategies are going to get the best response in terms of incentives, and the $25 gift card was where we landed. So that's what it'll be going forward.
That's cool.
I'm in the District 6, the Midwest neighborhood. Now I'm the block club leader. We usually will remind the people to check those things.
Excellent. We're going to put the 2025, like along with the results, we're going to put this 2025 survey out in June too. So it'll be another opportunity. We want it to become an annual thing.
Oh,
yeah,
really?
but it's still lots of seniors, they cannot not that good at even complete those things, no matter paper or phone. They just don't do it. So maybe if you want to let us to help you the blood
Yes.
clubs. We can just help you get more conclusions.
Absolutely.
And is this gonna be open data portal, like we can utilize, like we download it and do more editing, or is it only for us to do any presentation, just to view from your platform?
So I think it's a little bit to be determined. I know we probably will make the data downloadable through the platform. So like the aggregated data that would be presented at like the zone level. I don't know if we're going to be, I don't think we're going to be able to make the individual responses available. Like we've promised confidentiality for that. But some sort of aggregate data set should be available in some way, shape, or form, whether it's through the NVI portal or through the Open Data portal, either one.
Okay, sounds good. I like it if we can utilize to download it
Yes.
than just to view it on the website.
Yes.
Thank you, Noah.
Hey, Noah.
Uh-huh.
It's Michelle. I'm sorry I couldn't get my my camera to be accepted. So I'm sorry that you can't see my face. But I was just curious about funding and like what does as a business, since you seem to be management or something, like just generally like what's the expense of data-driven Detroit, and how are you funded?
Yes. So we're generally about, in the past, we've been about $1 million a year organization. We've gone through a bit of growth over the past year, and now we're a team of 14 or 13 or so. We're normally hovering more around like 9 or 10 for a while. So I don't know exactly what the average annual budget is going forward with that. My guess is it's probably somewhere more in like the $1.2, $1.3 million range. I like to joke that we tend to put the low in low profit limited liability company, but basically it's like we grew up in the nonprofit sector. A lot of our funding came from like foundation grants and things like that. And we very much, like, even though we are an L3C now, I think we still kind of run a lot on like the nonprofit ethos. So our funding comes from the mixture of project-based grants from foundations. We're not allowed to receive general operating support, but they do still give like grants for certain portions of like the community infrastructure that we maintain. So like the bigger data tools, State of the Detroit Child Housing Information Portal, Neighborhood Vitality Index, those are all like kind of big projects that foundations can support through programmatic grants. So that's where a good amount of our funding comes from. And the rest is just from consulting contracts. And then that kind of pays for all of the free and low cost services that we provide out to the community. So it's we definitely, we are allowed to make a profit. I would say we generally don't make much of a profit because of the funding model and things like that, and the nonprofit ethos, but that's kind of how we've stitched it together. Yeah.
Thank you. I heard that you have maybe this is one of the newer hires. You're having maybe more community engagement. That's
Yes.
a new role. Yeah, I'm curious, just as a recent student in urban planning, I'm learning in my classes and engaging with people in the community, like how to dig and how to find this information, and then exploring, and then there it is. And I wonder, how could you see this just making a bigger splash in the community? Is that sort of your community engagement officer? Really, you're doing, you and your team of 10 to 14 people are making, collecting, storing, analyzing all of this kind of stuff. And how do we help it improve or make an impact? What I'm saying is you could have all the data sitting there, and then somebody else in the city doesn't, what I mean, either doesn't have it, didn't find it, or whatever. I'm just wondering how to draw that connection.
And I think you're actually what you're hinting at is exactly why we hired this partnerships coordinator, because really that was the challenge we kept running into. And with 10 of us around, there wasn't a lot. Nobody really had the time within their jobs to dedicate to doing it well. Like I could do some of it, but I'm also, helping run the finances of the business. My co-director helps manage the human resources, and we're both managing projects. It's kind of like going back into that nonprofit ethos where everyone's already wearing multiple hats. And the community outreach piece is so important, and it needs that level of attention that we just weren't really able to get it. And I can't tell you how many times, like Erica, my co-director, or I have done presentations of like the State of the Detroit Child tool or the Housing Information Portal tool from nonprofits that are like, oh my goodness, this would make my life so much easier if only I'd known that it existed. And then we'll have the same conversation with them 3 months and they'll be like, oh yeah, that thing was awesome. I need to remember that it existed. So it's those kinds of questions where it's like somebody to actually go out to people, show them like everything that's available for them to use, because a lot of these tools were designed with input from stakeholders in the community, but I'm not a communications expert, and a lot of the rest of our team aren't either. So it's like, how do we get people to use them in a way that is long lasting? And I mean, honestly, a lot of them are probably designed to be used, not on a daily basis, but more like when you kind of reach key decision points in a program. And so it's hard. It's like a different kind of use that we need to cultivate as well. Like, I don't know that your regular nonprofit like program organizer or program operator is going to log into State of the Detroit Child every morning when they, get to work and just check. But it's like if they're writing a grant application and they need to understand how things are changing in the community they're serving, it's those use cases that need help solve for. So my hope is that the partnerships coordinator can really help bring more awareness, bring more use, and then also kind of create that feedback loop that helps us make sure that we're being as responsive to what the community needs as humanly possible. Because it is a two-way street. Like we don't want to make data tools that nobody uses. We've done that before and it's not fun. Spend a lot of money, get something very fancy, it makes a splash, and then it goes away and nobody looks at it again. We want people to actually be using these tools regularly. And so this person is kind of like the linchpin in what I hope will be that effort.
Thanks for that explanation. Can I just ask one more beginner question? I'm in my first semester of GIS and I'm doing it asynchronous. So so I haven't gotten to like really engage with other people. But so this might be like a very novice question, but how much of your work is like automated or, programmed, and how much are you like, yeah?
An increasing amount, I would say. The GIS that I did back when I started at D3 is very different from a lot of the data processing that we do now. Like I would say now we still have GIS analysts, and they tend to work a bit more, I would say, on the front end, what we would call like, once the data sets are kind of prepared or ready, like designing the maps, laying them out, like it's much more of that kind of an experience as opposed to doing more like direct data manipulation with GIS. Most of the data manipulation tends to happen in Python on our side. So we have a team of data analysts who do a lot of Python coding, and they automate processes to kind of like handle a lot of the data sets that we have. And so it's helped us become a lot more efficient, become a lot more effective at like centralizing and taking and integrating large amounts of data. But there is like that sort of greater separation now between, like I would say, like the back end like data analyst side of things and the front end like GIS analyst like interpretation and product creation piece of it. And that's different from how it was when I started. Like when I was doing kind of both some of the back end data analysis when I started and the GIS map making, and now it's much more, it's just the skill sets are different nowadays. Technology has moved very fast. So
Thanks for explaining that.
I guess my question is, I think it's great that you're working collaboratively with, or I don't know if you're working collaboratively with, but the city of Detroit's hosting a lot of online data, and that kind of releases some of the burden that you need to host in terms of access to open data. Do you have a process in which you're working either with the city or other I guess other entities to maintain open access to this data? I work with a lot of health disparity data sets here at Wayne State, and
Mm,
a lot of the data sets are national, and that access to those data sets just currently changing, especially at the
yeah.
federal level. So I don't think it's impacting state and local issues as much right now, but I'm just curious if there's kind of processes in place or collaborations in place to maintain open access to these data sets.
Yeah, it's something we haven't had to worry about with the city for a very long time, which is nice. Mainly because when they, when Duggan was elected, shortly after he signed like an open data executive order, that mandated that like the creation of the open data portal and all of like that all the city's data was by default open. I mean, whether they've lived up to all of that is another question, but the spirit and like the framework from an institutional side are there, and we haven't really had to worry about it. But there's also a mayoral election this year, so who knows exactly what that's going to do to change anything. We do download the data sets that we get from the open data portal, so we're not just linking into them directly like the city's open data portal. So building permits, like all those, like we're downloading them and then doing the cleaning processes and integrating them into our data tools that way. So we do have records if they somehow go away. I don't know that we've had any conversations yet about what it looks like if they try to, but we'll see. We have good relationships. Actually, the chief data officer for the city is a former D3 employee, so we have pretty good relationships over there. And hopefully we get at least some warning if we had to go back to our 2013 days when we were basically like walking around to city departments with a hard drive and being like, hey, give us your data. Hopefully you would have some warning there. Yeah, the state is a bit of a different animal, and that it tends to be really relational with them. Because like the data sets that we get, they're from Department of Health and Human Services mostly.
Okay.
And well, there's some that are just like published through the public like school data websites and things like that, but we get a lot of data like through DUAs with DHHS as well, and that really we've found it kind of depends on like who's the person we're trying to route this DUA through, and like does it actually like are they do they become an asset or an obstacle in getting that thing approved. So we've had some that have gotten better over the years, some that have gotten worse. But it really tends to be like tied to those one-on-one relationships.
Thanks.
Yeah.
And do you have to deal with a lot of confidential data? I mean, I would imagine that with the kind of the consulting side of your business, you would, but they can't always be open source then.
Yeah, no, we do have some confidential data sets that come in, but even in those cases, we try to make sure there's always like some element of it that can go out to feed the public good. So, and that's actually one of the requirements for us to take on a project. If someone just wants to do like a confidential report or study or something like that and have it not see the light of day, we won't take the project on. We'll decline it. So, and something for the public good has to come out of it. So if it's like, it could be if there's a confidential data set involved, maybe we don't release the confidential side of things, but there's an aggregated piece or some sort of analysis that can go in the public realm. But yeah, there has to be some element of that.
Thanks.
And it do raise me a similar question about confidential when Brandon mentioned that the confidential. I feel like for us, the residents' view of confidential seems like different as the owner who really shared our information, because what happened right now is the parcel map actually have everything what we think is confidential. If you go to the BSNA, that is how you need to purchase like every other address besides yourselves, and you need to pay $2 to get it. It used to be, but right now, if you look at the city of Detroit or even counties, all the Metro Detroit 3 counties, their county portal, they actually open up the information for everything, your home, and how much you paid, and then the way you transact, everything. I consider it rest confidential to myself, because I don't. What if it's a scam? Just like, got information, just a letter to everyone. Although they said, oh, this is not the most recent updated like this year, but yeah, some people. Not everybody make the sales of their property every year. We stay here like 5 years, and then your record is true. And I feel like, how comes everywhere just posting our confidential like address and then our names that without any worry.
Yeah, and I mean, it's worth thinking about too, right? Like, all of this information looks very official and things in spreadsheets, but every line in that spreadsheet represents a person or like multiple or like thing. And so it's like, we try to be very careful and thoughtful when we're sharing information out about like what kind of information that is. And it's something we don't do perfectly, but we're trying to push ourselves even more in this direction, especially as, like AI and data analysis and like reverse engineering data sets like becomes more of a thing. It's getting to the point where you can like throw a bunch of like even ACS indicators into a blender, and sometimes they can predict like, oh, this is like this ant, like they can use that to reverse engineer a person, like individual responses. And so we're trying to think like, how do we make it so, this is one of our, it's a lot less well defined of a project for 2025, but it's one of my goals, is like, how can we involve the community more in like responsibly governing all of this information that we're stewarding, so that they're like, people are engaged and have control over like, well, D3 has this wealth of information from the NVI survey data. Here's what like we feel comfortable being shared out of that. Here's what we don't feel comfortable being shared out of that, and things like that. And getting like putting more power back in the community's hands with that. So more nebulous, but an equally exciting area of work for us to start thinking out, or to think out more.
Does anyone have any more questions for Noah?
I think I got all my questions asked.
Okay, good. And I want to thank you, Noah, for taking the time to answer all of our questions.
Thank you. No, this is great.
We do a lot today. We were like, "Ooh, we got a lot for Data-Driven Detroit today." But I really appreciate all your thoughtful answers. I learned so much more about your organization today. I do want to, there's one thing, because we have 10 more minutes. There's one piece, and I know you touched on it, but maybe just as far as the worker cooperative ownership model that you are in now. I have two questions. What does that mean to your organization? And two, how does one become part of that cooperative?
Yep. Yeah, so this grew out of the fact that when we transitioned out into being a nonprofit organization, or out of being a nonprofit and into the L3C model, originally we were exploring this idea where like several foundations might become like owners of D3, and they would be investors and, subject to capital calls as just kind of helping sustain the organization. That didn't pan out at kind of the 11th hour. And so basically the executive director, sole director at the time, now my co-director, Erica, ended up basically owning this thing. And she had never intended to own a business. Like, this was not kind of like what she had wanted, but she also was committed to D3, didn't want to see it go away. And that was just what ended up having to happen at the time. And I think the other thing to note around that too is that like, she hadn't really wanted this to happen. I don't think our funders had really wanted that kind of structure to happen either, just because when you concentrate what's really a community asset or a community resource in the hands of one person, it's subject to whatever happens to that one person. Like if Erica had won the lottery and decided to move to Tahiti, well, what was to stop her from just like selling or dissolving D3? as an organization. So
Right.
at the same time, we didn't really want to convert into a specific nonprofit structure because one, our funding streams didn't really support it that well. We had too much consulting type revenue in order to like become a nonprofit. And then also we had seen just a lot of like how data is influence and data can get very weaponized at the board level pretty effectively. And we didn't really want to have a situation where like the board of an organization could push the organization in a way that might be detrimental to its operations or reputation. And so that was kind of like, we view like the new kind of neutrality of D3 as a very important thing. And actually a lot of our nonprofit partners have told us this too. They're like, it's better if you're neutral rather than taking like strong stances on certain like issues or things like that, because then your information carries more weight when we use it. And so like all of those things kind of led us to shy away from the nonprofit and towards the L3C model. And then Erica owned this L3C that she had never really planned to own. And the foundations were like, we don't know if we really want you to own this long term either, because it's all tied to like one specific thing. So the worker ownership process started almost as soon as we converted. It took a long time just because one, there was a very intentional process of trying to like engage as much of the team as possible and like help them like build up that sort of like familiarity with not just like coming at decisions from the point of their job, but from decisions of like an owner or like a governance type structure. And we eventually made it. There's a lot of organizational baggage to work through. But yeah, so now it's we're up to 8 owners now. Basically, that means for the most part, the ownership board governs the organization. It functions similarly to a nonprofit board, but because it's focused more in terms of like the workers themselves, it's focused less on like external influences and more just like on guiding the mission and things like that. Like that's the lens through which we make all of our decisions. There is potential for financial benefits for the owners if D3 does well. It's usually not that big because we don't make that much money. There is theoretically that potential. And then, but really it's more about like getting that sort of more inclusive distributed governance model so that D3 isn't tied to any single person. And so people can start, we have a 3-tier process. Like after someone joins the team, they have 6 months to kind of just like get acclimated or whatever. After 6 months, we can invite them to participate in a curriculum where they kind of learn more about what worker ownership entails. If they decide that they want to continue participating, they can then have a 6-month probationary period and then become like a full owner. So it would be like after 18 months, but you don't have to be an owner to be a D3. Like you can't be an owner if you don't work at D3, but you don't have to own D3 to be able to work at D3.
So once someone leaves, like takes another position, they're no longer part of that structure, the worker ownership structure.
Correct.
It ends.
Yep.
Remind me, I should ask you, do you have any intern plan to hire in this year?
Probably, I would say not this year. We're still more remote than not, and we found that just tends to create like not a very good experience for interns. We tried it a couple times during the pandemic, and it was just not great. It might be more. We might explore it more next summer, though. I think is kind of what we're thinking. Yeah, so like summer of 26 is possible.
Well, Noah, thank you so much. And I appreciate your time. I appreciate the great work. I'm sorry, Professor Joe, do you have something else? Did you have something else?
My thing is my internet cut off. Sometimes I see your screen is still. So yeah, I'm done. Yeah, I heard it. I just want to make sure because the students have a question regarding whether they can find a job right after the class, and then I was okay, this year I would recommend this that. Okay, yeah, that's all. Thank you.
Okay, I just want to make sure. Thank you again, Noah. We appreciate your time today. Again, your thoughtfulness in sharing all this information in a short period of time. And we wish you all the best and keep in touch with us. And and so that our students can take part in the great work you're doing as well. Thank you so
Absolutely.
much.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed the conversation.
Thanks. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
Thank you very
Thank you
much,
everyone
Noah.
for coming.
Take care.